Thank you for coming bright and early on a Thursday morning in Berlin, which I know is difficult. So we're going to dive right in because we don't have a huge amount of time and there is so much to cover on this topic. By way of a quick introduction, Lauren Taus is the founder of Inbodied Life, a psychedelics education and training platform that provides evidence-based guidance to practitioners and patients alike. She is also one of my best friends, so it makes this very easy. Licensed as a clinical therapist in both New York and California, Lauren is also trained by MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, the Ketamine Training Center, and in the shamanic realms. She's managed to convince her 79-year-old Jewish doctor father to be her main prescribing medical partner. Psychedelic-assisted therapy has been trending recently for its seemingly miraculous capacity to cure some of the most treatment-resistant conditions, and I was wondering if you could describe psychedelic-assisted therapy for us in your own words.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It's wonderful to be here with everybody. So the word psychedelic was coined in 1956 in a conversation between psychiatrist Humphrey Osmond and the author Aldous Huxley. The word psychedelic means mind expansion. So the way that I look at psychedelic is life. Life is psychedelic. We're tripping the whole time. Life is the biggest drug any one of us is ever going to take. And when we work with psychoactive medicines to disrupt pathological processes or to create more wholeness inside, we're essentially turning the default mode network off. And the default mode network is very useful. It's basically your brain police. And in doing so, we allow for new connections to come online, for new perspectives to be available. And that's really where healing happens, right? I like to say life is psychedelic and integration is a lifestyle. Integration shares the same etymology as the word integrity, which is often confused with morals. These are very different things. Integrity and integration is wholeness, and that's really our native state. So healing is a return journey, and my experience over decades is that psychoactive substances, when worked with well, which is actually not obvious at all, is really like some of the greatest hope that we have for humanity.
Thank you.
I love you.
This topic is on the business of psychedelics. So as regulations change in the US and soon to be in Europe to legalize or decriminalize more drugs, it's becoming a very lucrative business opportunity, especially for any sort of budding startups. Some companies have already arisen and failed, and I was wondering if you could tell us where you think some of these companies that are following a very classic capitalistic model are failing.
Currently in the United States, the only medical option is ketamine. And so there are many businesses within the field of ketamine practice that are doing lots of different things, some of which I think are great and some of which I think are not so great. And beyond that, we don't really have other medicines. In this sort of mass cry for help, collectively, globally, I think there's a lot of excitement around these medicines. But I find that often entrepreneurs with really beautiful intentions don't understand impact. And they don't really know what they're doing. And they might have the capacity to raise a lot of money, but they don't really know how to roll it out well. I find we're sort of in the 90s with the internet. And we've had, as you've mentioned, like a lot of massive failures already. And so I'm always an advocate of slow. And that's true when I'm working individually. That's true with a kind of an education perspective. And it's certainly true if we want to do business well here.
Yeah, that was sort of going to be driving into my next question, which is, for anybody looking to start a new business in the space of psychedelics, what do you think is best practice? Or you said slow, and what does that mean? And how would you involve practitioners?
So I also have the privilege to advise a number of different companies, and I'm close with the founders of the companies that I advise, and we bicker, right? Because I'm not a business person. I think I'm ballsy and I'm entrepreneurial, and the space needs that. Like, this is a pioneering industry. But we need to be very mindful of stewardship. Like, who is creating the work, and is it constructed in a way that's skillful, intelligent, and sustainable? I think that there's different verticals of investment in the business kind of realms, which we had talked about in the taxi ride over here, the Uber, which maybe I'll just name now, that there's the biotech side, right? And there's so many new medicines that are coming online. Like, we're not driving the same cars now that we were 50 years ago. And in the biotech space, it's exciting to think about medicines that maybe don't have quite the same duration, where you can get similar benefit, or maybe you don't even need to have such a big, like, psychedelic trip, if you will. I mean, those kinds of medications could ostensibly treat schizophrenia or cluster headaches. You don't need that always. And then there's the care delivery side, which is this kind of area where I have more mastery and expertise. There's education, there's media, conferences, right? But by and large, right now, we're talking about illegal medicines. And so revenue generation is limited, and I think that needs to be considered. Just to note that to take a medicine through the FDA process is going to take $300 million, right? A company can raise $10 million or $20 million, it's a lot of money, but $300 million in a lot of years, like, slow down.
Yeah, I think just to also zoom out quickly for anybody that doesn't know, you mentioned resolving all kinds of different issues from schizophrenia to stress. And I thought it could be helpful if you could sort of remind us what the sort of key psychedelic medicines that are being used at the moment, ketamine, MDMA, psilocybin, what are the main issues that they are helping to resolve in your experience?
I love to educate on Instagram, so if you're on there, follow me. I just made a video recently about the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders. And in many ways, I liken it to the Malleus Maleficarum, which is the hammer of the witches. It's this sort of way of kind of branding people who deviate from normal. I think that the human experience is traumatizing. It's harrowing, and it's also stunning and, like, fun. But it's challenging, and I think ultimately we're all interfacing with some type of trauma. Ketamine has been incredibly well researched to treat depression, anxiety, OCD. It's great for suicidality and end-of-life care, which I'm very excited about. The leading cause of death is life. We're all going to do it. And if we can get good treatment and more comfort in that reality, I think we can live a lot better, and I want that for us. MDMA, I would say, like classic trauma, PTSD. When someone has, a capital T trauma, they're so often dysregulated or dissociated when they're interacting with that pain point. I saw that very intimately with my mother, who had, top of the line, very expensive treatment, which I also saw hurt her. And so I'm very, very excited about MDMA coming online. God willing, it'll be 2024. They keep extending the timetable. And then there's been so much exciting work historically with LSD. Myself, I'm an ayahuasca girl. Like, I like being in a maloca. I like singing songs. I like the Icaros. But that's not the starting point for most. I would say across the board, like, these medicines, like, can be partnered to treat almost any condition. But the way it's done is the whole thing, right? We hurt and heal in relationship. And so we also need to be mindful of the member of the psychoactive as another partner that's getting introduced into the work. So does that answer the question?
Yes, very well, thank you. You also mentioned there your Instagram, which I highly recommend as a fountain of information for this. But my next question is about sort of social responsibility of practitioners, and as there's so much of this on Instagram, what are your thoughts around sort of responsibility and people posting things on social media that aren't, you know, super data backed, because we don't have the data for example, ayahuasca experiences. So do you think there should be caveats, disclaimers? Like, what is, in your opinion, the kind of socially correct thing to do?
I think that we need education. I'm very excited about education. Education, for me, in the realms of emotion. You know, many of you have children, and when you see a child, a baby, they know exactly what they're feeling, they know exactly how to express it, and then in all of our conditioning, and we all basically learn, don't be sad, don't be scared, don't be mad, and if you don't have anything nice to say, well, shut the fuck up, right? And so we fracture. I want emotional education and communication education, right? When we shut up to keep the peace, we go to war with ourselves. So with respect to education, yes, a lot of it is happening on social media, and that's weird. It's weird, but that's the world that we're living in. Like, very few people I know read books. Those of you who read books, good job, keep doing it. And if you can get like good information quickly, I'm all for it. I'm aware that a lot of people have experiences and then all of a sudden think they're experts. Working in the field of consciousness, the only seat that makes any bit of sense to me is the humble one. Like, humble, I don't know shit, right? I know what I know, and I'm always learning, and I have teachers. I recently posted something that was sort of funny, and someone basically saying that the plants aren't letting you kind of facilitate after one experience. And so this person was saying, well, then are you granting permission? I'm like, no, of course not. But we need to be educated. We need to slow down. We need to understand how wildly explosive these things are, how they can be destabilizing, how they can cause more trauma, how much potency they carry, really. So I'm not going to police people's posts. And I have learned personally through my psychoactive experiencing to reclaim play and pleasure and imagination and dream. And so I effort to bring that into my fields of education. And I'm becoming more and more cautious around how I do that, because I do want it to be fun. Like life is the biggest drug you're gonna take. I want you to have a good trip. And I do think that like responsibility is everything. And again, how that gets done, challenging.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's a future in which sort of like FDA regulated drugs where you have to have a disclaimer. People might have to start putting that in their posts and things as things do start to get regulated. But it is the Wild West. It is 0.1 version. We're at the nascent stage of all of this. Just taking a quick zoom out for the last sort of few minutes of this, I'd love for you as a therapist to tell me a bit more about where you see, I mean, your experience is very much in the US as opposed to Europe, but our general kind of mental health state at the moment.
There's a part of me that's like pissed off at therapy. I like to say that I'm tired of diagnosing fish in toxic waters. We don't have a fish problem, we have a water problem. Symptoms are never presenting in a vacuum. In my private practice, focus now exclusively on families. Like, I'm tired of our pathological self-obsession. When I see more data points presenting, I can be so much more impactful and effective. And ultimately, I want therapy not to be a forever process, but sort of a ninja intervention where people get what they need and then can get what they need in their own relationships, not with some foreign agent that doesn't get to participate in their actual lives. So I'm aware that we are collectively in a mass cry for help. We're not doing well. This whole like integrity integration thing, and in this field of psychedelic assisted therapy, integration's the name of the game. That's what we're talking about. We don't want for people to just have experience. We want the experience to fertilize the life lived forward. And again, integration is integrity. We are so internally fractured. And I think that the field, what I love about psychedelic assisted therapy as a field is that it really holds that each individual has their own inner healing intelligence, and that the job of the provider is to turn that on and support it. so that the individual can then live their own truth, not a truth that's like given over by some external expert, right? Like, you know. And I want to put the system on medicine. I want to put the water on medicine so that we have healthier culture that can support like better fish life.
Yeah, aquatic, amphibious life is important. We also on the Uber on the way, my favorite thing about Lauren is the way that you're able to sort of summarize things in a wording that is so unique to you. I actually wanted to create an app that was like the Taos app where you could just like input what you wanted to say to your colleague after an argument, like, you're so annoying, I can't believe you did this, and it would get like Taosified into like verbiage that was like, the story I tell myself is that wasn't very nice. So we were also talking generally about the word drugs. I would love for you to share.
So I was late to the game. I was sort of late to the party, and I'm grateful for that, because every psychoactive experience I've had, including in the realms of celebration, has been deeply intentional. The word drug needs rehab. Okay, like the word itself needs to go to rehab because it's entirely synonymous with medicine. And we have so much cultural baggage around it. So I like to use the word drug as a way of cleaning it up. We human beings have been engaging in psychoactive experiences since we got here. It's the most natural thing in the world to want to explore your own consciousness. I mean, little kids spinning around and around and around until they fall, and it's like little stars. There's so many animals in the animal kingdom that have been identified as getting high, and for both fun and because sometimes things are hard, right? I don't think there's any single country on the planet that gives people full bodily autonomy in terms of the capacity to choose if they want to engage in substances or drugs. And our draconian drug laws globally have not impacted consumption at all. So we just need to think very differently about drugs. Like, if someone's involved in a process that's hard for you, and I get that because I've been there, like compassion and curiosity. Let's effort to suspend our judgment and just apply a lot more curiosity. Because when someone's in a process of suffering, like, people engage in psychoactives either to depart or to connect. And I offer like my compassion on both. So that's my real invitation, is that we think differently about drugs, that we realize it's medicine, and that we offer all human beings and all substances like innocence.
Thank you so much. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you so much. So we have one audience question. Let's see if it pulls up. I think you partly spoke about this. Can profit-driven entities really be trusted with our mental health?
It's okay for people to make money. Right, I make money, and I like making money. I'm also conscious of that. I effort to tithe to certain companies and do well with the income that I make, and be conscious of like inequity. I think we need to be mindful of like total profit motives, right?
And back to what you were saying on scalability, like, this stuff, in your opinion, isn't all that scalable if you're working with good practitioners.
The real work of psychedelic-assisted therapy is intimacy, and that is not scalable. It's not.
Tijana, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.